Thank you, Jyotsna. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Before I begin, just wanted to take a pulse of the room. How many of you have heard about sandboxing? Show of hands. Excellent. So we can go into deeper discussions. How many of you have heard about DPI? That's great. Almost everyone. And how many of you have heard about AI? Okay, everyone, great. So looks like we have a room full of not just enthusiasts, but people who are really aware and are looking to go deeper into the discussions. And for that, we have a very esteemed set of panelists who bring in not just different perspectives, but also deep experience of implementing digital transformation in their own country. And that's a privilege that we have for today. I'm Sushant Kumar. I'm the founder and CEO of Kalpa Impact, and it is a privilege for me to moderate this session today as part of the India AI Impact Summit. As you all know, and you've raised your hand as well, digital public infrastructure is the foundational layer for public service delivery, and it has been transformational in reaching citizen services to billions of citizens across the globe, not just in India. And now, with the AI capabilities, which are getting integrated, or the governments are looking to integrate AI capabilities into the foundational layers, we are navigating complex questions around governance, institutional readiness, trust, and accountability. And you may have heard this. Digital transformation progresses at the speed of trust. If citizens, governments, civil society do not coordinate and there's no trust, digital transformation could stall or even be a failure. And therefore, in this session, the role of experimentation, including with technology, with policy, regulatory and technology sandboxes. How do we utilize those to enable safe, trusted, and responsible AI adoption within the large-scale DPI systems which are operating at population scale? We are building off our discussions we had at the pre-summit event with sandboxing, where we received tremendous outpouring of interest, and that has translated into our partners and my old friend Lorraine putting together a detailed report which will give you an insight into how to think about experimentation, how to think about sandboxing as well. And we will come to all of that, and we will come to the report launch and a speech by Lorraine. However, for today, what we want to begin with is something important. We have amidst us Srimati Kavita Bhatia ji, who is Scientist G at the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. She is also the Chief Operating Officer of India AI Mission. She has been a linchpin, an anchor of several initiatives across DPI and now with AI that India has witnessed, and we have all been privileged to see her contributions on national initiatives such as Mobile Seva, Aadhaar enabled services, which is the digital ID enabled services, single sign-on frameworks, and standards for digital governance and payments. So what you will hear about is from Ms. Kavita Bhatia, her experience of linking sandboxing, prototyping, experimentation in technology at a scale which serves a country with 1.4 billion citizens. So without further ado, may I invite Ms. Kavita Bhatia for her keynote speech.
Thank you all. In fact, it's been a very busy morning for all of you, and I've been seeing a lot of people attending a lot of sessions. So distinguished colleagues, partners from Datasphere Initiative, Kalpa Impact, UNDP, fellow government representatives, and all participants. It's my privilege to address this panel today, which is having a high and key which have key speakers which you will be hearing just after a few minutes, discussing about the DPI and the AI integration. So basically, when the global community is actively shaping the future of AI and DPI, this is a very important thing. So we need to very look into a lot of things which are critical for the success. I would just wanted to say that India's journey with DPI through the platforms like Aadhaar, Unified Payments, CoWIN, and a broader India stack, which just now has been mentioned, has demonstrated that at population scale, India can do digital systems which are inclusive, interoperable, and innovation friendly. Because the proof is being shown that the entire population some way or the other is connected and using, like the payments in India, we have code payments. We generally try and not to carry cash, and it's very easy to have a digital, and this is also one of the success story of the DPI. The systems have not only enabled service delivery but also catalyzed private innovation, improved transparency, and strengthened the citizen trust. And when in our country, when we have success of any solution, that is only because the citizens have a lot of trust. So today we are actually standing at the intersection of DPI and AI. AI, all you know, is a new layer of a capability, predictive intelligence, adaptive system, automation at scale. In fact, government is also building this layer on top of DPI, because then the government will become a proactive government rather than asking the citizens to seek for the service. It will proactively give the service. But this layer also has a complexity. When AI is embedded into the DPI, the implications are systemic: bias, opacity, data governance risk, accountability challenges can scale as quickly as benefits. In fact, that is the discussion I heard that you will be having after a few minutes. This is why the theme of this session is basically very important. AI DPI experimentation and the role of Sandbox is both timely as well as essential. For global majority countries, AI-powered DPI offers a transformational possibility which will enable smarter welfare targeting, which I said that the governments will become proactive, real-time public health surveillance. We can, in fact, identify where a pandemic is coming and we can take a proactive steps. Adaptive learning systems in education, precision agriculture and climate resilience, and efficient governance, redressal, and public service delivery. However, these opportunities come with structural constraint, uneven data quality, capacity gaps, procurement rigidity, regulatory uncertainty, and trust deficits. In such contexts, the experimentation is not a luxury, it's a governance necessity. So, for the Government of India's perspective, regulatory and sandboxes serve very critical and have three functions which need to be looked into. First, the controlled environment, because the sandbox will allow innovators and the others to test their solutions on a real data, so that we will know what exactly the results are going to be. Second, risk anticipation and mitigation. This will also make sure that whatever the algorithmic biases are there, they will be known before it is actually sent on a large implementation. And third, iterative governance, because this also is a very important, that we will be able to get the feedback which can be incorporated into the solution, and final output is what is desirable for all and will make sure that we have inclusion with this solution. So India experiment with the fintech solutions, digital health pilots, and open network experimentation has shown that the structured experimentation reduces uncertainty and will preserve the innovation velocity. So as we advance today's agenda, which is again built on the three principles: human-centric safeguard, interoperability and standards, open standards, because we believe that the standards should be open and the solutions should be interoperable. And third, capacity and institutional readiness. So this is also very important that the policymaker, the technologists, and the frontline administrators must learn through this experimentation. So, with not taking much time, I would also mention that today's panel will build on the AI DPI Sandboxes pre summit dialogue, which was held in December. It is encouraged to see that many governments are sharing practical lessons. If we experiment rightly, we will not merely deploy AI in DPI, we will shape the trustworthy AI ecosystem that strengthens democracy, enhance public value, and builds citizen confidence. The future of AI powered DPI must not be accidental, it must be deliberate, principled, and collaborative. India stands committed to the working with global partners, governments, development institutions, innovators, civil society to co-create frameworks that ensure AI remains safe, trusted, and inclusive at scale. In fact, we have already launched our AI governance framework. It's a framework. Now we have to build on top of it. So we are we would be welcoming all the researchers to come forward or the innovators to come forward and tell us how the risk assessment frameworks and methodologies should be built on that framework. So I look forward to the insights from this distinguished panel and the collective visions in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really helpful in setting the context extremely clearly, and that sets the task for us in terms of the panel discussion as well. With this, we'll be moving now to the launch of a short video from the Datasphere initiative from my dear friend Lorraine. This captures the insights from the ongoing work on AI DPI experimentation and use of sandboxes across different regions. So please allow us a minute as we set up the video. And here you go. I hope the audio works.
Hello, everyone in New Delhi.
And
I wish I was there with you today. I can only imagine how exciting it must be with all the buzz of the AI world converging in India. If it was not for the fact that I just recently had a baby, I would not miss it for the world. So I hope you bear with the video of me instead. Before anything else, I wanted to compliment the panelists and the co-organizers, UNDP and Kalpa Impact, for their partnership. Our journey started a while back, and in fact, our exchanges led up to a pre-summit dialogue convened in December last year to address the theoretical foundations of digital trust. That session was a key moment to explore how countries can responsibly design, test, and govern AI-powered digital public infrastructures. And we had three takeaways. First, that AI and DPI must be understood as an interconnected infrastructure. Two, that trust building and meaningful inclusion are foundational for this process and for these infrastructures. And three, that experimentation and iteration must become the norm. It was also clear that countries across the global south are already pioneering innovative governance models. And scaling these efforts will require long-term investment in institutions, skills, and civil society engagement. So it's deeply symbolic that we are gathered here in New Delhi within a nation that was largely responsible for coining and spreading internationally the concept of DPIs. And by hosting this summit, the first one in the global south, India continues to lead the way, providing the definitive context for our discussions today. So why does the nexus between AI and DPI matter? As we witness the rapid integration of AI capabilities into national identity, payment, and data exchange layers, we face not only gains in multilingual interfaces and predictive analytics, just to mention a few, but also increased complexities that can amplify bias, opacity, and exclusion across all downstream applications if left unchecked. Because DPI carries higher stakes than sector-specific systems, its design choices can affect millions of people. And to navigate these risks without stifling innovation, we are calling for the use of DPI sandboxes as controlled and inclusive environments for co-creation. Sandboxes can be what we call laboratories of trust. When done responsibly, they can serve not only as technical testing grounds, but as levers for trust. By testing solutions and preventing silent failures, where technically functional systems quietly harm human rights or exclude marginalized groups. Sandboxes cannot resolve all governance challenges, but we have found that experimentation, grounded in iteration, transparency, and collective learning, can and should provide a structured way to surface trade-offs, test safeguards, and generate actionable evidence on areas for improvement before and after rollout of DPIs. That is why it is my pleasure to launch today our most recent report, Sandboxes for DPI, Co-Creating the Blocks of Digital Trust. This report represents the first global effort to investigate, document, and systematize this nascent field of the intersection between sandboxes and DPIs. And we do so by structuring this report into three. What are sandboxes for DPIs? Why do sandboxes for DPIs? And where can we find them? I should also note that back in 2022, the Datasphere initiative was the first organization to establish a taxonomy of sandboxes. And today, we have used the occasion of this report to revise our definitions and frameworks, and sharpening the distinction between regulatory, operational, and hybrid sandboxes, while also proposing the first ever formal definition of DPI sandboxes. Our definition, which you'll see in the report, focuses on initiatives specifically designed to test technologies or governance arrangements within the three core layers of DPIs: identity, payments, and data exchange. It is also building on this definition that we move beyond theory and provide the first global map of DPI sandboxes. This is the where. Despite this being a nascent field, we have identified 16 pioneering initiatives. From the Aadhaar sandbox in India to the European Digital Identity Wallet, these cases we have mapped reveal some key insights. First is that feedback loops and institutional learning are features of successful DPIs. That DPI adoption depends on trust, and that we are seeing hybrid models of sandboxes emerging in the context of DPI. We also see that testing is typically done upstream, from the foundations up. And among the cases analyzed, we see more prevalence of DPI sandboxes and ID systems, followed by data exchange and payments. We also conclude that investing in DPI is dependent on the delicate equilibrium of balancing the opportunities and risks of global markets and digital sovereignty. And that adds to the argument of moving DPI development away from rigid implementation and towards systems that are iterative, inclusive, and responsive to the people they serve. Our recommendations point to the need of treating sandboxes for DPI not only as one-off pilots, but as institutional capabilities necessary for governments worldwide. Ultimately, the question facing DPI is not whether experimentation is needed, but how it's carried out and to what end. I want to finish my intervention by stating that our commitment extends far beyond today's launch. Throughout 2026, we will transition these findings into a practical how-to toolkit to DPI sandboxes and launch a dedicated track at our Sandbox Summer School in Lisbon. I invite you to join us by downloading the full report on our website and exploring our global inventory of case studies. Let us use these laboratories to co-create a future where digital infrastructure is built on inclusive and responsible foundations. Thank you so much for your attention. I wish you a great panel today and a summit throughout the week.
In order to facilitate the launch of this report, can we please request all the panelists to come forward for a picture?
can you switch? Can you switch to the presentation? This what you see here. This what you see here is the QR code for downloading the report, and I hope it's visible to everyone, and you are able to scan the code and download it. Yes, and we'll put this up at the end as well. Now, without further ado, let me transition to the next segment of our session today, which is panel discussion. And the first panelist that we have, may I request Mr. Adesh Khadka to join us here on stage. Please give him a big round of applause. And as we speak, Dr. Nakundwe Moses has perfectly timed his entry, and he's joined us for the panel. I hope it wasn't too much of a trouble finding this room.
Not a trouble at all.
As long as we have you here spot on time. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us here. There's a chair for you. And next, I would like to call upon Alexandru Oprunenko. He's the team leader of Innovation in Digital, Asia Pacific Regional Bureau, UNDP. May I now call Maureen, who's representing the Datasphere initiatives. She's the Africa Sandboxes Forum lead from the Datasphere initiatives. We have Dr. Verena, who is co-CEO of OpenData.ch in Switzerland. She's program lead for Prototype Fund Switzerland. And it will be my pleasure to moderate this discussion today. Looking forward to it. Check. Great. Dr. Nakundwe, I have the first question set up for you. And we were waiting with our, holding our breaths that we will have you here, and we'll begin with the first question. I think the first time we met Dr. Nakundwe was for the discussion on Jummy Stack.
That's very correct.
That's very correct, yes. So I have had the pleasure of discussing Jummy Stack in Tanzania, Jummy Number, the ID payment systems that Tanzania is rolling out. And therefore, Dr. Nakundwe, we would love to hear from your experience of rolling out some of these foundational elements of DPI, but also now that there's discussion around how do we integrate AI capabilities into it. So talk us through two things. First, tell us about the state of play of digital transformation in Tanzania, and then do inform us about how you're thinking about sandboxing, prototyping with AI and DPI.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Like the way I've been introduced, I'm the ICT Commissioner of Tanzania. So I look at all the things digital transformation for our country, which our journey started in 2003. The way we look at digital transformation, we look at it is a third level of how to transform the economy to be digital. That is, you start with you digitize the data, you create the system, and then level 2 is digitalization, and then the last phase is a digital transformation itself. Now, why are we doing that? We're doing that because we want to accelerate transformation for our country so that we'll achieve what is a vision of achieving personal governance. And in the personal governance, we need to use AI. But we do understand that AI needs three things to be available to any economy. One is data, two, capability of computation, and strong algorithms. This is how we see it. And from the point of view of Tanzania, is we see that we need to build those three capabilities as quickly as possible. That's where the DPI is coming through. And our experience of the DPI is, of course, we do understand that there are levels on how we can transform and start to get benefit of all these things. When we started this journey, we started with um, policy documents and strategies on how to build digital infrastructure. And in the digital infrastructure, we do look at two things, actually. Hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. Then where we are now, we are building the digital economy. But the goal of where we see is to create digital society. That is, a society that is consuming all these technologies in the digital in a seamless way. Now, in doing that, Tanzania have created digital ID number. We have dubbed it as Jamii number. Jamii means society. It's a society number. It's a number that is going to convert the population that we have to have digital population. Then there is a interoperability bus of the country, where at current moment, our government is having more than 800 systems that is deploying to all the people. So we want all these systems to be able to talk to each other. So there is a bus for interoperability. Also, we dubbed it as Jamii bus. And then the final thing is to having instant payment system that will enable our people to be able to perform transactions seamlessly, just like the way India have been able to achieve that. We look at that things because we know that it's going to solve one critical problem, or I can say challenge that we've been having in our economy. Informal sector. The informal sector which always grows. So we believe that by providing digital ID number, making all the system to be able to talk to each other, we are able to convert the informal sector to be formal. Now, where the entrepreneurs or the innovators they are going to sit on top of the DPI that we are having. And we believe that by achieving personal governance system, that is using AI to be able to provide personalized services to our people, there will be limitless opportunity for entrepreneurs and all the other people that they are in the entrepreneurial ecosystem to be creating all the systems that they want. So this is where our journey is. This is where we are, and that's exactly what we are looking for in our country. Thank you very much.
That's so fantastic, Dr. Nakundwe, to hear from you. And just to remind the room that Dr. Nakundwe is the Director General of ICT Commission of Tanzania, and he holds a broad scope on delivering digital transformation for all of Tanzania. And it's so useful to hear his perspectives. But I have a rapid fire question for you. As the Director General of ICT Commission, and it's a rapid fire question. Right. What are the two challenges that you feel like are holding you back?
Well, because from the way we look at digital transformations of our country, we look at 5 pillars. And 5 pillars are the ones that they provide challenges, but it's something that we are working on it. One is to provide digital skills for everyone in Tanzania. Our population is 62 million. There are people who are not computer savvy. We just want them to be able to use all this AI system that they are available. So providing the basic digital skills to everyone is one of the challenges, but we are trying to tackle it. There's a challenge of digital security and trust. Digital security is about cybersecurity. Everyone knows about it, but our people need to understand because they'll be interacting with all these platforms that we have. But in the trust, is protecting the personal data for everyone, the issue of privacy, and also the issue that has to do with consumer protection. And then there is a telecommunication services so that they can reach everywhere, especially in the level of 4G, if possible, and 5G, the digital economy itself, and also the digital security, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So those 5 pillars are the ones that we are working on. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we are tackling as a country.
Fantastic. You did mention trust, and that's a thread throughout. Ms. Kavita Bhatia also mentioned that as we scale citizen services at population scale, so do the challenges around cybersecurity, privacy, data protection. And therefore, the context of this conversation becomes all the more important. And then I would want to come to Mr. Adesh. Adesh is Joint Secretary for the Ministry of Technology in Nepal. So we're getting the second government perspective in here. So Mr. Adesh, my question to you is related to your experience in Nepal. When you face the pressure to deploy AI solutions because of all this buzz that we have around, you must be feeling the pressure to deploy AI solutions and quickly. But how do you ensure that the institutional safeguards, the regulation, all of this is in place so that you can protect for the harms that would scale as quickly as the benefits?
Thank you, Susan. And very rightly pointed out, and I think it's a crux of the problem across all the government agencies. When there is an innovation, and especially the innovation of the scale of AI, we generally see two faces of, or two parts of the government itself. The one part, it's more on the promotion of the technology, the promotion of the innovation. How do we set up the startups? How do we set up the ecosystem for the startup? But at the same time, there is another face of the government, more traditional, more into a regulatory framework, and who would be like, how do we safeguard the actual things, the core trust of the citizens, the core trust of the market. So this is a very, very fine balance that we have to walk at this point. And very beautifully pointed out by the Lauren in the video, all the aspect of how and where we have to be careful on doing this. In the Nepalese context, there is the national ID as the DPI part, and most of the citizens has been enrolled in that national ID. We have a very good private sector working on the digital payments. As of today, we lack the very elaborate data exchange platform. There are few the technological shortcuts for the data to be exchanged, but then we lack the data exchange platform. And as a country, we are planning on this the complete DPI transformation. At the same time, we have also introduced the AI policy at this point, and that policy clearly mentioned that we will be using the sandboxing. So I see 2 points at this time of the technological intervention. One is, how do we improve the capability and capacity at the regulators, the agency that regulates? Are they aware of the risks and the technology that the people are, the innovator are trying to experiment? And at the same time, how do we introduce this acceptance of failure? Because these are the experiment at the end, and there could be a failure, there could be some kind of a problem that are introduced by the technology. And how do we make sure that the traditional regulator have this vision that this might fail, and how do we accept it? So these are the two big questions that we are facing at this point. I think it's very work cut out for me by the Lauren.
Fantastic. So good to hear those perspectives. And my good friend Alex, you have an Asia Pacific perspective on innovation, digital, DPI, AI. When you speak to governments, such as, say, in Nepal or in Tanzania, what is the big question they ask you, or what is the big surprise you face? And within that context, tell us about when you think about and bring in sandboxing and experimentation as a recommendation to these governments.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sushant. Perhaps I will take where you finished, because recently we just had a request to support an AI sandbox. My big first question was about what is actually your use case? And that unfortunately drew a blank face from my counterpart from the government. I had another meeting around AI application service delivery. My question was, what is your use case? Do you have a problem statement? And again, a blank face. So, and that once you see the pattern across, you understand that there is something is missing in the conversation about AI and DPI in the government and in the service delivery. And I would say there are three big questions where we try to draw a discussion with our counterparts. The first one is why, right? And this thing I kind of wonderfully picked in Cape Town when we were part of the conversation with the Indonesian delegation with Nandan Nilikani, the architect of Aadhaar, where he started why DPI was introduced in India, because they wanted to cut leakages in public programs, and they wanted to improve financial inclusion. When you start discussion around DPI in many countries, they cannot say. The discussion falls immediately into the 3 building blocks and whatever might be required for that, without actually saying to what extent DPI and AI should be speaking to the policy intent of the government, where the government wants to drive digital as an enhancer of development trajectory. So that's the first question. The second question, which is really important, is for whom? DPI and AI is for whom? Is it for private sector? Is it so that people in the government feel better about what they do and need to spend less time on something? Or is it about the people for whom the services are delivered? And again, I will not name the country. We had a conversation about a super app that in a way sits on the top of the emerging digital public infrastructure. My question was, what is their perception, what is the feedback from users on interacting with your super app? And the response from the secretary was, oh, our police officers are very happy. Which is amazing, right? Because effectively it shows the perspective often in the government is to solve their own problems. It's not to solve the problem of other people, which is a huge gap, especially when we imagine a world where, as Lorraine was saying, AI comes at the center, becomes a fuel, an oil for the DPI. Everyone knows, right? We don't point fingers, but each rollout of the massive public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, has issues around inclusion, around, okay, so not exclusion, around missing something, around driving some gaps and mistakes. With AI, this thing becomes like on steroids. Not asking the question for whom we are deploying a particular solution is really important. So, and the last thing where I would close, Sushant, is how does it change what we do when we do that, right? So Lorraine was saying about, talking about learning institutions, what does it mean? If you look at the way how most of sandboxes and experiments are designed, they're trying to work around those particular variables in terms of technology, in terms of regulation and so forth. They're actually not looking at the way what will change in the relationship between different departments who work on a particular issue of the sandbox, how the institution will learn and take it to scale. So I think this is the third important thing to reflect together when we are starting developing Sandbox, because Sandbox is not just a test, it's a learning experience, a lab, as Lorraine said. So this is how we kind of try to drive this work with the government. Lastly, what I would say, and I hand over to you, Sushant, is that what is really important is how we contextualize and how things are really possible to be carried forward by the people in the respective contexts. And what I mean is not just colleagues in the government, in the MOSIT, or in the on MOFAGA, right, Ministry of Federalism, but also by the users themselves. Will they be able to use it confidently, with trust, and fast? Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic points, Alex. And really, you were pointing at some of the, I guess, reflection questions that governments should also have. And I'll come back to you, Dr. Nakondwe, not right now. First, I need to get Maureen and Verena have their say as well, and Adesh as well. And the question will be, are governments solving their own problems and not citizens, and whether experimentation or the learning experience could play a role on that. So we'll come back to that. But we've heard from the government stakeholders, we've heard from UNDP across the Asia Pacific who are working on live sandboxes. We have Maureen, who's leading Africa Sandboxes Forum and working not just from a civil society researcher perspective, but also what do governments need. So Maureen, my question to you is, when they are building governments are building foundational DPI, adding AI capabilities, what are the strategic choices that helps them prioritize to deliver public benefit, especially in capacity constrained contexts where you don't have it all? And what's the role of sandboxes in such settings?
Thank you, Sushant, for that hard question. I think I want to first take an opportunity, or rather steal an opportunity, I hope it doesn't count to my minutes, to just address something that Alex mentioned. And thank you so much for mentioning the part of asking authorities, really, when they are thinking about sandboxes, what is the use case? I think it's something that we have noticed also in Africa, especially where I've been engaging with authorities from different countries, that they recognize the importance and the need of sandboxing, but they have not gone to the next step of the particular use cases that they actually want to learn from, or what we use this term at the Datasphere initiative is your challenge sandboxable, because sometimes even what you're dealing with doesn't need a sandbox. Oh, sorry about that. I hope you can hear me better now. So I wanted to steal an opportunity there to say that part of what we are doing in Africa now is hand-holding, really. So if whoever you are talking to, probably it's not an African government, maybe it's someone else, but if anyone here knows any African government that is actually looking into sandboxing, one of the things we're doing this year is what we're calling one-on-one coaching, but it's really hand-holding to look into challenges that you're dealing with and see, do they need a sandbox? So it's another tool that you actually need. And if it's a sandbox, how do you go from, planning the sandbox to actually executing it and evaluating it, going through the sandbox journey? We have placards that we will hand out for those who are interested in actually learning about that journey. So now I will start answering your question. So let's start counting the time from now. So it's really a pleasure to be here. And I wanted to just take a step back and start by defining a sandbox. The way we are defining it, especially in our new report. So think of sandboxes, if you're here and you're wondering what we're talking about, as controlled learning environments designed for structured experimentation, as Alex said, but under defined governance frameworks, built-in safeguards and timeframes. So now going to the question that I was asked about strategic choices that help governments to prioritize which AI solutions really would be valuable for delivering public benefit. The way we have looked at it, and I'm happy to note that this is something that is even covered in the report that Lorraine talked about, is some of the strategic choices that authorities need to look into is contextual testing of AI together with DPI. And what do I mean by contextual testing of AI and DPI? So we have learned that AI experimentation cannot be separated from broader infrastructure, infrastructural setups. It cannot be separated from governance considerations, but also it includes a number of things, including interoperability, system performance, and regulatory compliance. And so for us, we see the intersection between AI and DPI as an opportunity to not just test AI in isolation, but to test it in a context that is already set up for systems that are built to serve greater people. So that's one of the strategic choices that we think that can be taken by people to test DPI in context, rather AI in context with these foundational systems that Lorraine talked about, digital identity, digital payments, and data exchanges. And so we have already learned that this is something happening actually with India's Aadhaar sandbox, that in as much as it's set up as a DPI sandbox, AI capabilities is part of what is being tested. And it is through that kind of testing that then you're able to identify solutions that are going to be benefiting the public. Now, coming to the second part of your question, which ideally is asking about how to deal with risks and harms. I want to start by painting a picture of the kind of risks that happen when AI is integrated with DPI. Again, just in case someone here is wondering. So when, imagine when AI is embedded into core DPI functions, but then these digital identity or payment systems have been set up with, say, some biases. So that means AI is going to be using data that is based on a system that already has biases. So you realize that now the challenge becomes foundational. So the risks that come when AI is, when DPI is powered by AI are actually very costly, if I may use that word, especially if they are caught after implementation, because that's a whole DPI layer that is powering AI that is now going to cause harms and all the risks that you can already think about. So what sandboxes we know help in addressing this is that they allow governments to invite in stakeholders. One question that we usually get is what makes sandboxes different from, say, any other collaborative tool, or rather any other experimental tools that can be used for, say, testing emerging technologies. And what we know for sure is sandboxes are one of the best tools that create an environment where government is not just experimenting. When I say government, I mean authorities really, and regulators. They're not just experimenting with service providers who will be innovators or entrepreneurs, but the sandboxes create an environment where now you can invite in civil society, community groups, academia, and all these, it creates a structured way in which to invite in others to be able to experience and interrogate some of these innovations that are coming up. And through that is how we build that trust that, for example, our keynote speaker, Kavita, talked about. Because once we're able to build the confidence of civil society and community groups into these systems, then we are building trust in the systems that are being put up. I know I'm doing bad on time. So I want to conclude by saying that's what happens when you make a lot of notes, because I'm wondering, what am I missing? What have I not said? But I want to conclude by highlighting, again, going back to our report and highlighting that part of what we have covered in our Sandboxes for AI report is how sandboxes help to bring out some of these issues in rights and inclusion. As Lorraine said, we are looking at sandboxes as laboratories for building trust. And so we elaborately really mention how sandboxes can help in dealing with rights and inclusion issues, data and AI, cybersecurity and resilience, sustainability and environment, and finally the cross-border challenges and data and digital sovereignty. So all that is what you will find in the report, sort of showing you how sandbox is actually best suited for this.
Thank you, Maureen, for that overview as well as a very exhaustive summary of what it is within the allocated time. So really appreciate that. Now we would move to Dr. Verena. And with a question that's also very close to my heart, which is, how do we design sandboxes that test governance models or infrastructure as a whole? Not just technical robustness, but also thinking about AI regulatory robustness. So that's my question to you. But before you answer that, I just want to remind my panelists that I'll come back to you with a question, which is, what is the one word that comes to your mind after this discussion that we have gone through? And it's, trust me, it's only one word that I want to hear.
Trust.
Thank you. Dr. Verena, please.
Thank you so much, Sushant. So yeah, I think this has also been one of my main preoccupations. How do we not just test models, but actually test models in context? And for that, yeah, I do consider that question particularly problematic in the context of DPI. Why? Because DPI is infrastructure. And as soon as AI enters into that infrastructure, AI becomes infrastructure. So as Lorraine said in the launch of or in a video message, AI all of a sudden becomes so foundational and so fundamental to how we work, and it designs us as a society and us as a network. And I think in that context, the central question must be, how are we not just creating models or the technology or the business models around those technologies that, like, in a possibilistic manner, but how are we actually considering societal considerations? And that is one of my biggest worries, because sandboxes are sometimes really used to facilitate access to market instead of trying to work out a balance of healthy societal considerations and healthy economic considerations and technological considerations. And what do I mean by trying to explore in a sandbox the modeling context? I mean, all the governance elements that we have been discussing for now over a decade, actually nearly 15 years in responsible AI, like, for instance, privacy, safety, oversight, decision rights, transparency, fairness, inclusion, to name a few more. And I want to double down on that because in my previous roles, I also worked in tech, amongst others. And in one human-centric design approach that we ran there, we really saw and witnessed how organizational incentives were really set so that models would be produced and new models would be launched, but there was much less incentive to actually investigate the models once they were out on a platform or in the product or in the service. So speaking of use cases, speaking of also what I heard from the World Bank the other day on a panel discussion, the last line of defense, which should be actually human considerations. And there I think we can even learn and I close here, for DPI and AI and DPI from actually small AI considerations.
So I'll begin with you in terms of our question. What's the one word that comes to your mind after the discussion today? Okay, maybe you can take your time.
No,
Alex
I
is
have
ready
it. I have
with
it.
his
I'm
one
ready.
word. Okay.
I'm ready. Experiment.
Alex, how about you?
People.
Adesh?
Should I also answer the previous question?
Sure.
Okay.
Can we just finish this one word round and then you can come
but
back to
it's more on
that provocative question, are governments solving for themselves or for citizens?
So word would be sustainable.
Sustainable. Maureen?
I have 3 words.
All right. You've got a special pass.
Okay. These are actually not my words. I picked them from Kavita, but she talked about the need to building citizen confidence. So those are my 3 words.
Dr. Nakundwe?
Not my 3 words.
Trust.
Trust. Thank you. Adesh, maybe you can answer that question very quickly on are governments solving for themselves or for citizens?
Yes, and thank you. It's very humbling question in a way, and we generally find that this is the case for the government also. So we accept that generally there are these parts, but again, as I've already said, there are always 2 parts of the governments that we say when we introduce the technology. The one that generally wants to introduce, and for that force, the citizen, the tech industry, the private sector, and the government inside this employees are also the equally stakeholder. So unless you have something for their side, generally technologies are not introduced. So maybe it's more on the power play within the bigger ecosystem that we see that panning out there.
Thank you. Dr. Nakundwe, 30 seconds.
There's 4 questions that I think every government should, sit down and try to answer. One is, just like what Alex said, what is the problem in which DPI claim to be a solution? And whose problem is it? That's question number 2. What new problem can be created because of solving the problem of introducing DPI? And the last one, who will be most harmed by DPI? If you answer those questions, you have a solution that touches people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to all the panelists here for a really thoughtful, very grounded, and clearly you're coming from your contexts, your experience, and providing us with insights that come from lived experience of either building for your country or kind of paving the path for building for your country. And we have entrepreneurs, we have advisors to government. So it's been a really good use of our time, and I think the room will agree. And with that, I thank all of you. And we will put up the report that was launched by the Datasphere initiative as a QR code. And in the final few seconds that we have, I would urge the room to download them. Our apologies, we couldn't get to the audience Q&A, but I hope you'll find the speakers outside the room and make sure you get your questions answered. So with that, I thank all of you. Call this panel to a close, and we'll put the QR code for the report for download on the screen right away.
So
Thank you everyone for joining us and giving your thoughtful views on AI DPI experimentation and the role of sandboxes. On behalf of Impact Summit's team, we are going to offer you a souvenir with our sincere thanks.